I've seen so many friends, like filmmaker friends and writer friends, that struggle with dialogue. So my background is primarily acting, but filmmaking as well. I actually initially went into film with the intention of becoming a screenwriter. So it's something that I feel I'm adept in, and hopefully I can give my 2 cents on this, and hopefully what I say will help. I was asked to review a friend's script, so Ryan, shout out to you, lovely. I mean, the story was good, but for me, I found his dialogue very cumbersome, so I gave him some pointers on how to improve that. Hopefully I'll give a few more hints and tips and things in this particular video to help anyone else out there that struggles with dialogue. So what is dialogue? If you're new to writing, I suppose, you might think dialogue is just what people say to each other. You know, people have conversations in everyday life and they talk, so that's technically dialogue, which is kind of true. But when it comes to film, when it comes to storytelling, dialogue is really important to get right. There is actually a specific way of writing dialogue, so it helps the story move along, it helps build character development, different aspects of a story within film, within book writing as well. I always advise people to write their scenes without dialogue first, because that is kind of the unsaid actions, and that's kind of the core principle, especially in film. You're watching things unfold on the screen, so it's through the actions and through the scenes, the settings, it's all visual. Film is very visual. It's best to add dialogue to either convey a want or a need of a character, or convey unseen aspects that drive the story forward. Dialogue should always be purposeful, it should never be filler dialogue, and I can't tell you for the life of me how many scripts and things over the years that I've read and actually acted, and the dialogue was just atrocious. It was very filler, it was dialogue that was very pretentious, as though it was making the writer look intelligent and things, and dialogue should never be about the writer, it should be about the characters and the story. That's kind of the utmost importance of dialogue. Yeah, so I'm going on a bit of a dialogue rant. When it comes to actually adding dialogue, say you've written a scene, you want to make sure the dialogue is useful for the characters to interact. Instead of like your normal small talk that you get in everyday real life, you avoid that at all costs. If you're introducing a character for the first time, yes, obviously you say hello and blah blah blah. So let's set up a scene. So a main character has just got a new job, they've gone to a party or like an event or something like that. So this is the first time we're seeing the character ourselves. Say this is like some wannabe like top salesperson or something like that. So they might walk into a room nervous, or they might walk into a room confident. So the dialogue, the words that they speak should also reflect that characteristic within them. So if someone comes up to them and says, "Hi, how are you? Who are you?" Like, if they're kind of hesitant with their dialogue, or like very short and precise with their words, it might show nervousness within the character. If they go up to a person and they start the conversation, or they're the first to kind of speak any dialogue, it shows confidence and things like that. There's different ways to use dialogue to convey emotions and characteristics in a character. So what is cumbersome dialogue? Cumbersome dialogue, especially for me, in my opinion, is when it's literally that thing of back and forth, but nothing's really happening, you know? Like, oh, do you want a cup of tea? Yes, please. 1 sugar. Do you take milk? That kind of like meaningless dialogue. And I mean, something else could be happening that's really interesting in the scene, but when it comes to dialogue, unless it's needed, it's best to leave it out, basically. When it comes to long monologue style dialogue in film, definitely like a risk with that, unless it's tailored to that genre of film. So if it's like a Shakespearean or like a Regency or a period piece, there is a certain way to do a longer monologue. Then you'd kind of expect that from a character, you know? If a character's like a really flamboyant, philosophical like character, then you'd expect long-winded dialogue that's kind of flowery and like fleshed out almost. Yeah, again, dialogue should be used as like a third character in a scene. Another tip when writing dialogue, and I was actually talking to Alex about this, my film husband, I was talking about this feedback I was giving Ryan. Yeah, when it comes to writing dialogue, it is so important for you to actually speak the words, like write it and then speak it, act it out, because if you can't say it, like it becomes cumbersome in itself, you know. The actor or the reader, if you're writing a book, will struggle with the dialogue. So yeah, try and make it so it's easy to say, not necessarily like simplified, but make sure it makes sense, you know. I think when we write, our thoughts can sometimes be a lot more slick than our mouth. Like me, myself, definitely, you know, I write a lot better than I speak. You wouldn't believe it, but believe me. So always make sure the dialogue matches the actual vocal part. I think nowadays it seems like everyone's too afraid to put pauses in scenes and silences, you know, and yeah, I was saying to Alex, this is kind of where it's almost like a missed opportunity when you add dialogue, because you're missing the silence, and that kind of leaves room for tension to build. It leaves room for the characters to react to one another without dialogue. You know, they're not just reacting to words, they're reacting to the presence of another character. Yeah, don't be afraid to add pauses and things, especially if you're struggling to add dialogue in a scene. You know, dialogue shouldn't be forced, it should just kind of flow. Another thing with dialogue, there should be a beginning, a middle and an end within the scene. So it might start off with a little bit of a nudge to kind of what's going to unfold within a scene or within the film itself, you know. But break it down scene by scene, you know. Treat every scene as though it's a mini film in itself, you know, beginning, middle and end. So try and add the fluctuating like momentum that should be within a film, you know. There should be kind of like an introduction and then an inciting incident within the dialogue. So for an example, let's kind of break this down. Say it's a gangster kind of movie or something. So one character's at home, door knocks, another character enters. The character who's just entered is kind of there to collect money or something, you know. So the guy who's at home, he might be on edge, and the other one might kind of slowly lead into the fact that this guy owes him money, and that's where the tension builds. If you can leave it as long as possible to get to the point of like, oh, where's my money? It really adds to a scene, and it helps bring out emotions within the characters. The guy who's collecting the money might get a bit testy because the other guy is avoidant, you know, he might not be answering any of the questions, he might be silent, and the other guy might be avoiding the fact that, you know, broaching the topic that he might owe money or something like that. Obviously, with dialogue, as an actor, the shorter the sentences, the better, just to memorize and things. But like, if you want to make it real, if you want to make it relatable for the audience to kind of listen and get drawn in, there shouldn't be long sentences, you know, unless a character's going to give a monologue. And I'll get into how to write a monologue properly if you really want to add it in. So yeah, it shouldn't be long-winded. The sentences should be short and snappy. They should never say what a character actually wants. It should always allude to what the character wants. So that's why it's really important before you even write your story to really focus on your characters, figure out what their wants are, what their desires are, what blocks them, what hinders them and all that thing. So within each scene you can always allude to what that character wants, either within the story as a whole or like within the scene. So if you're really kind of set on putting a long-winded monologue kind of narration thing, I think they were big in like 90s thrillers, you know, like the climax scene where the killer would explain how he killed someone, those kind of monologues. If you really want to put that into a film, regardless of what genre it might be, the best way to approach it is to treat that monologue as a mini play almost. So the words that are coming out of his mouth, he's not just describing how he did it, he's painting a picture for the character and for the audience, you know. Again, beginning, middle and end. So you could write that monologue as a mini film scene or like a book scene in itself without saying directly what happened. So when you're painting like a story within a monologue, this is why it works so well in Shakespeare and things. It leads into the characters' emotions, what they were feeling and what they're kind of anticipating will happen. Sometimes they do say what will happen within the story and things. So yeah, we're in an age where our attention spans as a species are very, I don't want to say like small, but they are, you know. Yeah, our attention spans don't hold longer than like 10 seconds or something, you know. We're practically turning into goldfishes almost. So it's really important to not have long-winded dialogue unless there's like a story within it, you know. Something happens within each sentence. Something happens within each sentence. There's got to be emotion within the dialogue without saying I am sad, you know. You allude to it, you allude to those feelings, and you try and be as descriptive as possible without actually saying what the thing is. It's mystery, you know. You're trying to add mystery to what person's saying. Do they mean this or do they mean that? And that's kind of where the audience kind of gets drawn in. It's trying to figure out what they actually mean by those words, you know. Sometimes like in acting, like when I've had dialogue and I'm like, oh god, this is pretty like limited, you know. There's only so much I can kind of act around this, you know. I could make this so I'm thinking about something else but I'm talking this, or I could be like really in a scene. So yeah, if you've caught any of my previous like writing videos, I always say leave dialogue till last. It's really important to focus on building your characters, knowing your characters inside out. You don't have to go into that thing of knowing what their favourite colour is, what their favourite food is, unless it pertains to the story, you know. I mean, there is like a basic story structure that you can follow where it's introduction, inciting incident, then conflict for the bettermost part of a film, then climax and then resolution. I did speak about this in a previous video, so if you want to catch that, yeah, check out the playlist. Smooth. Make sure you're researching all of that. Make sure everything is kind of set so you can add that dialogue if needed. You know, dialogue shouldn't just be there for the sake of being there. So wrapping this video up, if you have any questions about dialogue, just drop a comment, you know. If you have any examples of dialogue that you want to improve, drop them in the comment or DM me on Instagram. I don't mind giving advice if I can. I'll always try and give feedback, you know, constructive feedback. So then it really is on that person to implement that if they want to. A little exercise if you want to take something away is look at the old black and white films. I mean, they were on point with dialogue, you know. The characters would say something to kind of reveal who they were as a character, but also to drive the plot along. I mean, the best example I can give you is All About Eve. This is my favourite film ever because the dialogue is on point. I mean, the acting is just phenomenal, you know. The story is perfect, and yeah, I mean, the story isn't anything spectacular, you know. There's nothing like, there's no fireballs or anything like that, you know, but yeah, the dialogue is what really drives that story because it's done so well. The characters only speak when they're kind of pushing the film along. And then you kind of like wait when there's like pauses in that film. You're kind of waiting for a character to say something because you're so excited by like what they're going to say. So a lot of the old ones definitely knocked the nail on the head with dialogue. So another one of my favourites is Bring Up Baby with Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant, I think it is. But yeah, the dialogue in that, it's so witty, and I mean, it acts as a third character, you know. The two characters, the two main characters are kind of locking heads a lot of the time, but it's through their dialogue that they really kind of come to blows. So yeah, I could talk all night about dialogue like, and the importance of it and getting it right. That's it. Subscribe, guys, girls, non-binds. If you found this helpful, do drop a comment just to say, you know, it might inspire me to do more writing videos. When I get the time to, I'm so like, I've got so many plates spinning at the minute. If you want to stick around, there is another video that I've released today. So lucky you guys, girls non-binds, you get 2 videos in one day, lucky you. That one I actually had planned. So if you want to check that out, go ahead. It's all about spiritualism, kind of philosophy and things like that, and how not to get disappointed. So yeah, stay classy, stay awesome, and be kind. Bye. When it comes to so lucky you guys, you get 2 videos for one day. What? You buy one, you get one free. And there is actually a bit unless it's kind of when it comes to long monologue, like monolithic is that word? No, I've lost it. Mercury retrograde. There was a final point. There was a final point to be made. Ooh, Mercury retrograde. Wow. It's definitely Mercury retrograde. My camera just turned on.